What's going on, guys? Welcome to Victims and Villains. If you guys are new to our content, we create content like what you're watching right now, simply to educate and engage individuals like yourselves on mental health awareness and suicide prevention through pop culture. My name is Captain Nostalgia. I'm a writer, podcaster, and the film festival director for our very own film festival called Horrific Hope, the very first film festival to ever celebrate the genre of horror and openly discuss mental health. Like more information about who we are, what we do, our podcast, movie reviews, social media, more information about how to submit your film into our film festival, and most importantly, our mental health resource library. All of that can be found in the show notes below. Well, as I talked about yesterday during Malik's review, this is a busy week for horror, and this is a busy week for Shudder, because Shudder is releasing not one, but two brand new movies, and this one really rocks. And this one is special to me because I live in Richmond, and these guys are from Richmond. I'm, of course, talking about the documentary, This is GWAR. So This is GWAR. It tells the story of how the band started, how they've kind of gone through different member changes, how the sound has evolved over the years, and I'm not going to lie, the last act of this movie gets really emotional. So if you guys don't know anything about GWAR, this documentary is a great introduction to them, but I will give you kind of just the liner notes. Basically, they were a band that formed in Richmond back in the early 80s, and they combined a love of cheesy sci-fi films and punk rock, infused that into a heavy metal spectacle that has formed its own mythology. It's spun off into home video, short films, comic books, etc. Also going to let you guys know that documentaries are among the hardest type of films to ever actually talk about and review, because documentaries are always told from one person's perspective, so you never kind of get the complete story. And This is GWAR is honestly probably one of the very few documentaries I've ever come across that you feel like you get a complete expansion, because this isn't just someone giving their opinion on something, but this is an oral history of one of the most fascinating bands to ever enter into either the punk rock scene or the heavy metal scene. And arguably one of the more fascinating things of this movie isn't necessarily how the members kind of grew and weaved and how this mythology expanded and how the world kind of saw this band, but it's also arguably how this band kind of started from wanting to be essentially a sci-fi B-movie, and really grew to be this worldwide phenomenon. This band is one of a kind, and in retrospect, this documentary is also one of a kind. A long time since I have found myself invested into a documentary this captivating that it actually almost brought me to tears. Full disclosure, just to kind of show you guys where I come from in terms of my own relationship to GWAR as musicians. This is a band that I have listened to over the years, but I would never kind of call myself a fan. I've always been kind of a casual fan, like I know of their existence, but they're not something that I seek out. And after watching this movie, that definitely changes, because not only have I looked up all of their albums on Spotify, got a lot of catching up to do. I'm also looking really forward to digging into their new stuff. It's just recently come out. But I'm also excited to dig into their weird movie science fiction horror elements that they released in the 90s, because I love B movies, and I love horror, and I love sci-fi. So why not jump into something like this? And this movie really made me want to give this band a deeper appreciation. And as a viewer, if I can come out of a documentary or a biopic about a musician that I knew very little to nothing about, and want to say, you know what, I want to listen to their music, I want to dive in, and I want to know more about this artist, and honestly, in GWAR's case, I want to know more about the mythology. That's the hallmarks of a great movie, and when you can take a subject matter that I know I know a little about and expand upon it and still make me as a viewer feel emotions, that is not only the hallmarks of a great documentary, that is a paramount importance when you're talking about a documentary. This is a great entry point into GWAR as not only as humans, because it humanizes this otherworldly mythology that these guys have created, but also at the same time it also lets you see them, it captivates them as really emotional people. And I'll explain why that's important in just a few minutes, but this movie is just really captivating, it's riveting, it rocks. It's funny, but also at the same time, it's really emotional and it captivates a lot of emotions in such a short period of time, whether you're a GWAR fan or not. This movie really surprised me in a number of ways, and I expected to like this documentary, but not to love this documentary. So I'm going to go ahead and give this one a 5 out of 5. It's been really, really rare. I feel like I haven't done that since Sundance. But this movie is probably one of the best movies that this year has given us. This movie will make you laugh, it'll make you cry, and also at the same time, it will get you invested into this band that you might have known very little about. So whether you're interested in the band or you're a diehard GWAR fan, this is the documentary for you. And now it's time to talk about mental health. I honestly didn't expect to talk about mental health in this video, I will be completely honest. But before I do, let's tell you new viewers. If you guys are new to our content, a mental health moment is where we take a theme of mental health from the film which we're reviewing and talk about it for just a few minutes in hopes to deconstruct the stigma surrounding mental health. Sometimes when I'm covering documentaries, it's really hard for me to find an angle to address a theme of mental health, because documentaries are really a give or take of whether or not they're going to address the mental health of the subject. And then the film got to the deaths of Corey Smoot, who was the band's lead guitarist, and their very iconic lead singer, whose name was Dave Brockie. And then this is the part of the movie where the film actually gets emotional, and there's a point in one of the interviews where one of the band members says something along the lines of, you have these relationships with these guys, and they, you don't really show any emotion, and then something like this happens, and you have to kind of rethink essentially the whole state of that. Now, I just probably butchered that quote, but hear me out. Because I want to talk to the men watching this video right now, and, men's mental health is something that we don't talk about a whole lot. Granted, there are changes constantly being made every day that are encouraging men to be more open and honest with their feelings and their mental health of what they're feeling, but it's still largely a taboo topic to address. And as a man myself, I find it very, very important to discuss openly how I'm feeling, what I'm feeling, when I'm feeling it. Because I know that as a man and as someone that has fallen into societal expectations, that it ends up doing more harm than it does actually good. On a side note real quick, and I'll drop a link in the descriptions below, please check out our episode on Lightyear. And I know that's such a odd thing to say right now, talking about men's mental health, but in that episode we talked about the mental health of societal expectations and generational expectations as well. How they actually do more harm than they do good. Because we've raised up generations that fall under the lies of be a man, suck it up, buttercup, and that list just goes on and on and on. It's because for so long, men were expected by society to be stoic and show little to no emotions. And so at a time that you showed emotions, you were considered weak. At least in the stories that my grandfather has told me before he died, and a lot of the societal expectations that I've also endured as a man have embraced those stereotypes. As a man and as a mental health advocate, I want to speak out largely on this, and I think GWAR's third act speaks volumes about the importance of being honest, being vulnerable, and regardless of your gender, religion, sex, nationality, ethnicity, whatever. Be open, be honest, and be bold when you're talking about your mental health. How you feel on the outside when you're hurt is just as important as what you feel on the inside when you're hurt. And as always, if you or someone you know is watching this and you're struggling with suicide, depression, addiction, self-harm, alcoholism, anxiety, etc., click the links in our descriptions below and check out our mental health resource library. And check out This Is GWAR when it hits Shudder this Thursday, July 21st. We're going to be back tomorrow with a brand new episode of our podcast talking about the new movie Infrared, which comes out in theaters July 22nd. And for all you Room fans out there, this is the latest picture from Greg Sestro, so make sure that you guys subscribe below and subscribe wherever you guys get your podcasts from, and check out This Is GWAR this Thursday only on Shudder.